South during the Civil Rights Movement. The Black Panther Party, we started using it as about the third or fourth paper into the Black Panther Party. Huey Newton and Bobby Seale knew Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture well. They knew that he worked in Lowndes County with others. So when we had a studio apartment, just working out of Eldridge Cleaver's studio apartment, when they recruited him to work on the paper, Huey and Bobby came over because Eldridge was going back and forth to Lowndes County, Atlanta. They said, well, we have such respect for Stokely and Slick, we want to know if they can continue to get the okay to use the pamphlet. And they said we could do that. And so thereafter, they asked me to reinterpret it. And we wanted to make it, the one that's Lowndes County was kind of on the lean side, they want to make it more smaller and what have you. And over the years, I have transformed it. But this is giving you a little context. If you go look at that film, you will see a very impactful film. This shows you, this is not the Black Panther Party for self-defense. This is Lowndes County. In Lowndes County, when we were registering people to vote. It said vote November 8th, pull 11 for the Panther, and where you can see it says go home. That's the Lowndes County Freedom Organization. It had a shack. It had dirt roads back in those days. Here again, this is Robert Williams, another who Black Panther, and Mabel Williams, who the Panthers were inspired by Robert Williams, called Negroes with Guns. Robert Williams had to leave the country. He was the head of the NAACP. He was so militant that they expelled him from the NAACP. But the people in Monroe, North Carolina, who he represented, had such respect and love for him. Every time they would expel him, they voted right back in office. That's right. So he had to leave the country. He went to Cuba. He went to I think, Tanzania. Then he was in China until he was able to come back to the country, to Detroit. He stayed there until he was exonerated and was able to go back to Monroe, North Carolina. He and his wife lived with him. I call it this. I call the whole presentation "Some American History." October 15, 1966, Bobby Seale and Huey Newton co-founded the Black Panther Party for self-defense. And I put a note, in 1968, the name was changed to the Black Panther Party. Now, why was it changed? Back then, it was while we were working on the paper out of Eldridge Street apartment, still didn't have a headquarters. We were about 8-9 months into the party, about August of 1967, and Bobby and Eldridge were talking about how we get into more politics, get into more of the social programs and what have you, that we should change the name from just self-defense that we had been focusing on, because now we're getting into a lot of other programs and what have you. But Huey wasn't there that day. Huey came over later that evening, and they had to pass that to Huey as well, so to see what he thought about it. And at that time, he said, well, we're just 6 to 7 months into dealing with this self-defense. So the discussion went back and forth, and they put it on hold. They put it on hold, and they were going to come revisit it. But what happened is October of 1967 was when Huey got shot and the police got killed. So thereafter, come January of 1968, there were discussions on the news that had gotten out that the name was changed. But Huey, at that time, couldn't acknowledge it because he wasn't a part of that. But after he talked to Bobby and Huey and the other lawyers wanted to see him, the next press conference said, yeah, we had changed the name and went along with it. And so that's when it became early 1968, the Black Panther Party. This is the first, to your left is the first newspaper, tabloid, it was a legal-sized sheet of paper. done on a typewriter. Bobby Seale did this whole paper himself. I came in while he was working on it. I told him to help him improve it. And when I came and improved, they was over trying to recruit elders into the Black Panther Party in San Francisco, in a place we call the Black House. And when they were sitting down at the table talking and cutting it up, wasn't nothing happening there because it usually was a lot of cultural events, but downstairs, elders people lived upstairs in the studio apartment. And I seen Bobby working on it, and I said I still had materials from City College, when I went to City College and took up art, commercial art. I said I could go get my materials to help you improve the quality. And Bobby said, okay. So it took me about half an hour, 45 minutes to come and go. When I got back, they said, well, we finished with this, but you seem to be committed. You've been hanging around, coming around, what have you. And they say, we're going to start the paper, and we want you to be the revolutionary artist. And then they had this whole vision about becoming the minister of culture. They said the paper will be able to tell our story from our perspective. It'll be like a double-edged sword. It can praise you on the one hand and criticize you on the other. They say we want to have a lot of artwork in the paper, a lot of photographs and headlines, because the community was not a reading community, a large part of the community was not a reading community, but they learned through observation and participation. So those who weren't going to read out the long, drawn-out articles, they could get the gist of the story by seeing the captions, the headlines, and the art in the paper. And so we want you to do the artwork. And that's when I began to work on the Black Panther Party newspaper. The first tabloid issue of the Black Panther Party. That was the one in April, I think, 25th, when this one came out. This was after we went to Sacramento, California, to observe the legislation in relationship to they had got these right-wing assemblymen to begin to change the local gun ordinance because they couldn't deal with the Huey Newton, Bobby Seale, and understanding the law in relationship to when somebody was being arrested. Standing in legal distance's way, not interfering with the arrest, explaining to the young people who were being arrested their rights. They had to give their name, address, and phone number, and take the fifth. And they couldn't deal with that. And it was really a test sometimes, really a test. And so what happened is that we were going to Sacramento, and a lot of people don't realize that before we went to Sacramento, there was a meeting in Oakland explaining why we were going to Sacramento. But there were not only Panthers who went to Sacramento, there were non-Panthers who went to Sacramento. It was also this brother here who was murdered in Denzel Island, which the paper was about in Richmond, California. His sisters and his brothers were a part of the delegation that went to Sacramento. All you usually see in the images is just brothers in Sacramento. But there were men and there were women a part of the delegation. You had, and this brother here, name on to your far right, you probably see him, his name was Mark Comfort. He was organizing in East Oakland at the time. He had a group of brothers who he know. He had been in Lyons County before, because he was also had started inspired by the Black Panther Party as well. So this is how this context is. I'm saying we went to Sacramento, and we just went into the Capitol. That's not the case. We went there initially to read also Executive Mandate #1 regarding the concentration camps that they were developing to house and imprison black folks in during that time. And while we were reading that, while Bobby Seale was reading that executive mandate, about from here to the young lady, Ronald Reagan was holding a press conference. He was the president. So what happened when he was reading it, the press seen us, and they came over where we were. And first thing they want to know was why we were there. And Bobby explained. We read that executive mandate #1. At that time, they swooped Ronald Reagan off somewhere because it was parochial school kids he was talking to. And they came around and we were in the Lung Club. And so after that was over, we walked in, we didn't invade the Capitol. We walked into the Capitol with the press because we said we were going there to observe the legislation that was being passed. And what happened, we couldn't find it, so the press, everybody was following the press. When we found us upstairs, the press went into the chambers where the laws were being passed, and the first thing they said is, get the guns out of here. No, get the press out of here. Pastors followed right behind me and said, get the guns out. We turned around and walked out and leave. So we're on the Capitol stairs on the grounds for about maybe 10, 15 minutes. We go to a filling station about a couple of blocks away or more, and we got the guns, put them in the trunks and everything, and all of a sudden we had this police on this motorcycle come by. He see all these black men with these guns. He get on, whoop, 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 whoop. Next thing you know, they all the police in Sacramento came down on us. And they took the guns. They did everything they could to make them in violation of the local gun orders, jamming, putting guns, bullets into chambers, all kinds of stuff. And so that was what we call a colossal event. They arrested us, all of us, and we went to jail. And so thereafter, to make a long story short, we was in jail for a minute. And then we were going back and forth to court. And people were calling all over the country, we want to be Black Panthers. And so we had to begin to organize, and we had to make the decision. Because they didn't know who had guns. They just seen some pictures that some people had guns. They didn't know all who had guns. And so they had made a deal with our lawyer that if we plead guilty to a misdemeanor, that there would be an unsupervised misdemeanor, where we wouldn't have to serve no jail time, nor would we have to report to a probation officer. So what happened is that they didn't know all who had guns, so Bobby chose me as one of those to choose to plead guilty. Of the 7, I think it was 7 of us, 11 of us. And so what happened is that we went back to because we wanted to organize. All this latest shifting all of a sudden. And so what happened is that we would go into court, we plead guilty, and we turn and walk out. After we plead guilty, the judge said, no, you're going to jail. They set us up. So we all went to jail. I stayed there for about a couple of weeks or more. We had a little Bobby Hutton, who was the first pastor, who was Bobby's mentor. Knew his family and everything, had to get permission from his mother for him to be in the party. Little Bobby Hutton went to juvenile, and when you're juvenile, you do a lot more time than you do when you're adult for the same misdemeanor. So little Bobby Hutton was about in juvenile for about 90 days to 6 months. He came out smiling, right back, ready to roll again. So that gives you some context to Sacramento. To your left was Stokely Carmichael drafted. That's when we drafted Stokely into the Black Panther Party during that time. But another thing here is too relevant on this picture is by the left corner, North Richmond rally. We used to talk about black people moving into unincorporated areas, and they could set up their own government. And North Richmond and another county down in East Palo Alto were unincorporated, were not incorporated. They didn't have no mayor, they had the sheriff department, or something like that ran those counties. So we used to hold rallies out in North. That's where Denzel Down and brother was from. His family was from. And so what happened is that Emeryville, another place, was unincorporated. But 20 years later, there was a sister who heard this in East Palo Alto about it. And East Palo Alto came together and they changed the name to Nairobi. She came to one of our rallies on a Sunday that we gave at the Black Panther Party school at that time. When we were in school, we came up learning some on the weekends, and she wanted to acknowledge that they were inspired by reading the paper and us talking about black people moving into these unincorporated areas to set up our own police department, our own mayors and what have you. And so they did that. But then also you understand when you got contradictions and when you know what happened, you have those colonizers come in and they begin to want to take it over. And they begin to, you don't get the funding, you do all the things they can, you let the crime continue, fester and all that. So they had to eventually give it back, turn it over, and they turned it back to the name changed back to East Palo Alto. But then they also .com area came in, all that. Because it was down there by Stanford, California, and Stanford University in that area. The pig joint that you see at the bottom was a clip art that Huey Bible gave me when he came over and checking on the paper. They said, we want to put this pig in the paper every week, and we want to put the badge member of the pig that's harassing the people in the community, so the community know who it was. And I cleaned the artwork up and like that, and then I was thinking about it. It just came to me while I was just thinking about it one time. Why don't I stand up on 2 hoofs, keep the snort, and put a badge on it and all that? And that became the iconic pig joint that people know and transcend the African American community. Became a universal symbol that transcended borders. And while working on it, they began to, elders, Huey, and them began to talk about defining it. And this is when Kathleen came up, worked on this stuff with Elder Cliff, connected with her, and she came up and she was there with Elder. And so we were discussing about what is a pig, and they came up with this definition. A low-nature beast that had no regard for law, justice, or the right of people. A creature that bites the hand that feeds it. A foul to prey traducer, usually found masquerading as the victim